XCN, XYO, and other cryptocurrency holders. Let's get into it. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name's Neil. We keep technical analysis short and sweet. So we're looking at Bitcoin, and it is following that curve as we've talked about in the previous two videos. If you guys watch my videos, just leaving them on play helps me out immensely to get the watch time hours I need to monetize so we can get more information to more people on this channel. But Bitcoin obviously is at a new all-time high at 121. We just needed to close, and we're going to jump right into IOTX. It's not the most well-known cryptocurrency, but it is looking very, very healthy. And we kind of just want to look at the risk to reward ratio. So we can see that I clearly have some information saying we should be selling at 50 cents back in the day, back in November of 2021. And so we do have a long way to go to get back to that 50-cent mark. We are only at 3 cents. So that is a lot of potential ROI. We clearly have this black trend line right here. That's some strong major support. And we are trying to build some support off this orange trend line here. We may come back and test this a little bit. We are above the 200 EMA, and the 200 EMA is getting very strong. A lot of pressure is starting to build up with IOTX. There's a lot of potential for this to start moving very, very quickly. As we see back here, we had, about 2.5 cents all the way up to around 5 cents, 125% gain in less than 2 days. Pretty astronomical before destroying itself once yet again, having that consolidation period. But now we are trying to hold that 200 EMA as support, and we see that when we held the 200 EMA as support previously, the potential pump within, 2 weeks was around 111%. If we start pushing up towards that black downward trend line from the 200 EMA, say it's within the next 2 weeks, that's 143% potential increase for IOTX. But that is just the beginning, as when you look at the bigger picture, rough estimate from here to the top is about 1,400%, nearly 15x for IOTX. We are an absolute low. Last time we were a little bit lower was back here on the year 23, so 2 years ago, more or less. But we can expect this to be pushing up towards this black downward trend line, and when it breaks that downward trend line, there's not a whole bunch of resistance in between. Maybe a little bit here at 12 cents, which is 4 times your money, before pulling back to 8 cents, and then taking off to 18, and then back to 7, and then way up there to the 50-cent mark. So not a whole bunch of resistance once we get past this downward trend line. Now is not a bad entry. Everything is looking good and in the clear for IOTX. None of this is financial advice. Getting into the more lesser known, tokens like NEAR and Aerodrome. NEAR, we've seen this pattern before, inverse head and shoulders. As we've seen in my other videos, once we get over this 200 EMA, potentially we are going to start pushing up towards this black downward trend line. At 274 right now, the resistance being at $5 and about 14 cents. But getting over that downward trend line is very, very important, as NEAR protocol also has a very, very long way to go to get to its high of around $21. So for $2.70, not a bad bet. I assume we are going to be going over $21, as well as a lot of the other cryptocurrencies, as whenever we hit the all-time high, it pushes up for nearly double that. So you are at the absolute bottom, near absolute bottom for NEAR. Once we get over this 200 EMA, that is where we will be looking to enter in a buy. Aerodrome. I talked about this right here, right before it took off. I said, once we get over this 200 EMA, we're most likely going to take off. What happened? We took off. It may not look like much, but at 200 EMA to here, it's around 56%. So if you had $100, you have well over 150, and we are testing this downward trend line. We may get a little bit of rejection, try and keep that 200 EMA close. We may even have a pullback into the CM Guppy right here somewhere in this area around 96 cents. But breaking this downward trend line, same thing. Breaking that, we have a potential push up to $2.30. Near does look a little bit better than Aerodrome Finance just because there's not a whole bunch of information. But Aerodrome does have some very nice potential as it is trying to consolidate right near this downward trend line. So we just have to consolidate, wait for the 200 EMA and CM Guppy to start pushing it upwards. And we may see this become fire and testing off of this line right here on the CM Guppy, the second line in. It could just try and touch that like we see right here and then get that major push up. So we may be breaking out of Aerodrome Finance very, very soon. If you miss that 40% pop or 50%, you have a potential entry still right above breaking this downward trend line. However, we are overbought in the RSI, but we have seen when we are overbought before, we still continued to push upwards, but we still had some long consolidation period before pushing up once yet again. I will do XCN near the end, but moving on to XYO. I'm going to get rid of everything. Long consolidation period for XYO, but the longer we consolidate, the more we are going to increase the price in the long run. Again, also trying to get over that 200 EMA on the daily and zooming in. We are doing a long consolidation period. When I draw a line on here, it's going to look wonky, but you can see that this is the line I was going to be drawing. We have the bottom right here off of this area, and it's got the support before ultimately popping up, consolidation, and then taking off. We got support here, which is underneath the head and shoulders pattern, support here, and once we get over that 200 EMA, that is going to be our major support, which we just need to creep over this downward trend line, and then we'll ultimately take off potentially to the 618, which is around a penny and a half more or less, and then maybe test this downward trend line as support before pushing back up to the 2.5 cent mark. But this is a major cup and handle pattern forming, and its high being around 8 cents. Currently at a penny, you are looking at some pretty good ROI for XYO. It does have a lot of good utility behind it. Do some research on that. But we are just in consolidation with XYO. It's very rapid movements, so just keep an eye on this. Once we break that downward trend line, it's going to be pretty aggressive. Spell is trying to hold this trend line. It had its major push, high volume as we see, trying to move the RSI back to a healthy position, potentially test this yellow line here, but it's very tight consolidation. Not a whole bunch of people are selling. We are most likely going to start seeing some buying movement and breaking over that 200 EMA, pushing up towards the 0.00075 roughly before potentially filling out a rejection, testing the 200 EMA and pushing back up yet again. But just keep this one in mind. It does have a lot of room to run, a very long way to get to its high of almost 3 cents. So dropping a zero is very, very good news for any cryptocurrency, whether it be something like Spell or Hbar or Toshi, some kind of meme coin like that. This does have some nice potential as people who are using this. It's a governance token, and we just need to get over that 200 EMA, and we'll start seeing a major push up towards this area around dropping a zero and getting to 0.002. Compound, Hbar, and then XCN. Compound, phenomenal. I just keep recommending Compound over and over again. We had our entry here, our sell off here, entry in whenever we got over this downward trend line yet again, and then exit right around the 54 as we created a new downward trend, and then entry once yet again. So this is why you don't have all your eggs in one basket, because you can play the game that everybody else is playing and start making more potential in this consolidation phase. But overall, we can see here is a W formation, which is for the win, and we can start seeing higher highs for Compound. We closed above this previous high. Now we just need to get up towards this previous high and close, which is around the area where I was expecting compound to move yet again. We are holding support over the 200 EMA. Everything is looking very good for compound. If you missed your entry here at $46 multiple times to get in at 46, potentially 50. We are at 54. It's still not a bad entry point, as compound's all-time high is nearly $1,000, all the way up here at 926. So $50 to $1,000. You will not see that kind of ROI in the stock markets, any other market. Cryptocurrency is great for volatility, but also great for taking your money if you don't know how to play the game right. There's always pullbacks, a lot of panic, a lot of FOMO, but now we are doing a very nice consolidation. And if we zoom in into the 4 hour, we can see something a little bit tighter. Everybody loves it when it's tight. Nobody likes loose stuff. So we are looking at this bullish pendant breaking over this downward trend line. This isn't exactly the most reliable, but it is a 4 hour instead of a daily, so that makes it a little bit more reliable. We can expect, if we're breaking over this and holding a higher high, that we can start pushing up towards that $61 mark. The RSI pushed up and out, and we are getting a little bit of consolidation in here. But when you're looking back in July, we see it pushed up and out, had the consolidation, and even though it pushed back into the 50, which is very healthy, it didn't pull back too much. It pulled back to the RSI, but the RSI was the 200 EMA, but the 200 EMA was a lot closer in this moment. So the 200 EMA is a little bit further away, so we may still get a little bit of a retracement, testing off the CM guppy and the 200 EMA, making the RSI a little bit healthier before ultimately pushing up towards that $61 mark and beyond. As once we break that $61 mark and hold, there's not a whole bunch of resistance all the way up to roughly $90, and then the high being around 141 from a $54 investment. That's 3x. Can happen very, very quickly. And you're not going to want to buy once it has that push up again. You're going to be like, oh, I'm going to wait till it retraces. It continues up to 80. You're like, I'm going to wait for the retrace. It keeps continuing up to 100. And then you buy at 100, and then it pulls back. So it's definitely very volatile game. As you see that once we made it up to around 72, we had that pullback all the way down to 62, which is a pretty major reduction in price. But it held off the CM guppy, bringing the 200 EMA real close, and then ultimately pushing up. Compound, I keep recommending it, just like Tornado Cash, but if you haven't bought it, it's definitely recommendable to stack a little bit of a bag of compound. I have a pretty big portion in myself, as I believe it has some major, major potential. Not financial advice in any way. Hbar, definitely a long play out for Hbar. You have time to enter this. Just wait for that 200 EMA to start creeping up a little bit more. The RSI is looking healthy. Price is increasing. Volume's decreasing. That's divergence. We are starting to see more buyers than sellers for Hbar. And Hbar has very good utility if you are buying XRP and XLM. Hbar is definitely one to stack a bag of as well. It is only at 26 cents. Remember that. It is only at 26 cents for Hbar. So here in the near future, we'll see what the actual price for Hbar is. And then moving on to XCN, everybody's favorite who watches my videos. XCN in long consolidation. We've seen it with XYO, and we will see some major push with XCN. Nobody is selling this right now. It is oversold. More people are going to start buying this, and we're going to start seeing this test this downward yellow trend line. And this fair value gap being around 0.017, this red line. If we can break that area as we have touched it 1, 2, 3, 4 times, more or less, 5, I guess. This is very weak, this yellow line here that's going downwards. When we touch it a 6th time, we could potentially just be blasting through that to the 2.5 cent mark. Or we could be touching up here and getting a little consolidation. We just need to close above this high, and all hell will break loose for XCN. moving into the 4 hour for a little bit better validation, getting rid of everything. 4 hour looks very healthy. If you were to draw a trend line from this point up, which I have, so from this point straight across, this is support. This is, it looks like it crossed underneath, but we are going to consider it support once we get right over that 200 EMA. That's kind of the major resistance that we are looking at. RSI looks beautiful. It's just in consolidation. So while it is consolidating, this is whenever you want to be stacking your bag for XCN. It is at a penny and a half, all-time high of 18 cents. You do the math, that's a lot of ROI. So moving out into the bigger picture, into the daily, this is a beautiful chart. We came down, got over that 200 EMA, tested it as support here, tested as support, tested as support, and now this is like a brick wall. This is just holding support. Nobody wants to sell it, and we are most likely going to be seeing that push back up to the 4.5 cent mark, and then beyond the 4.5 cent mark, there's not a whole bunch of resistance, but you can see when we made it to 6 cents, it had a major rejection, actually all the way down here to 3 cents. So it cut itself in half on its way down. But we can expect a rejection at 6 cents, potentially some support at 4, which would be this previous high, which is pretty major retrace within just like a day or two. So don't be afraid to sell some and then rebuy at a lower price. But also don't be the person who sells your bag and then misses the pump on the way up. That's kind of it for this video. Good luck. Have fun with it. All references in the link below. Definitely, if you can, just put my videos on play and listen to me talk for, the 20 minutes so I can get some more watch hours for my channel and finally monetize and reach more people and teach them how to trade crypto, as this is the way to make generational wealth, as you guys have all heard. And there's so much potential on every day, every trade. 40% in a day is astronomical compared to stocks. So good luck. Have fun with it. I hope this helps you guys, and I will see you on the next one.